Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Hello everyone and welcome again to another episode of Cut the Crop. I'm Alison Stewart, FAR CEO, and this episode is another monthly roundup catching up with some of the growers in the region. And the first grower that we're talking to this afternoon is Guy Wigley. Hello Guy.
Hello Alison, how are you today?
I'm very good. The weather's not brilliant here, but what's it like down your way?
It's absolutely perfect. It's dead calm. It's just perfect for spraying, and I'm spraying some wheat next door to some grass seed. So just being careful not to tickle up the grass seed. So with your fellow. So that's what we've been up to. But the month has, or the last period, of course, has been dominated by planting, and everyone has finished now, thanks to kind weather. But it did get a little bit wet and sticky at one stage in the middle of the planting season, which was a worry. I'm always concerned to get everything I want planted in the autumn planted, because the spring crops never, they tend to be disappointing really in a non-irrigated environment. So that's where we're at with the planting. So
in the region, most of the planting has been done?
Yes, that would be my assessment of it. The last crops went in probably 10 days ago. So I think that everything's set up perfectly, really. And there's good soil moisture south of Timaru and actually north of Otago. They were almost, they were probably wetter than we were in planting, but I think the last couple of weeks should have seen them cleaned up. But on the selling front, the free barley seems to have run out in North Otago, and even in this south of Timaru area that's quickly disappearing, and the demand's now shifted to any spare feed wheat that might be around, and at firm prices, so that's encouraging.
So what's your thinking around this coming growing season? What's your prediction then, Guy?
Well, a slightly drier winter is always good for root development, and last winter was that kind of winter, and we ended up with well-developed root systems that carried us well through last spring, and of course, we had lots of sunshine to finish the crops off, which was really encouraging. And the other thing that's encouraging is that the first of the feed wheat contracts has come out for next year, for the 2021 harvest, and pricing is pretty. It's just below the 400 mark. It's 380 delivered, so that's probably not bad for a first crack at where the market sits. A lot of farmers have taken some of that contract to get their selling underway for next year, so it's looking good. And there was plenty of grass seed options to plant, so that was another positive thing. So if you take grass seed as a proportion of the operation, a lot of us are doing oilseed rape down here. That's all at a contracted price, similar to last year. And now selling some wheat. It would be fair to say that our incomes are locked. Nearly half our income for next year is locked in already. So it's a pretty good position to be in as a business. I'm sure there's plenty of urban businesses that would be envious of having markets that far out in front locked in.
So what about the milling wheat? Has there been an increase in plantings of milling wheat?
I don't know the answer to that, Alison. I know I've put on a paddock which mirrors what I did last year. And I think the flour millers were well supported with their first round of contracts that they brought out. So I think some people have been perhaps disappointed in what they've been able to contract. But again, the price on that first round of milling contracts was firm. So look, it bodes really well.
Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you very much, Guy. So our next grower is Roscoe Taggart from North Canterbury. Hi, Roscoe, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Okay, so what's been happening down on the farm with you guys? And what's the key things that has been happening in the region?
Well, it's sort of that time of year where autumn planting is almost all wrapping up and sort of gearing down for a bit of a quieter period through the winter. So yeah, I'd say through most of our region, crop is pretty well in the ground now, and just taking it easy or easier than we have been.
So the planting went okay? There weren't any sort of weather events that sort of constrained what you were wanting to do?
Oh, look, we have had just phenomenal weather for planting. It's been nice and dry, obviously too dry for certain parts of the country, but in terms of being able to get crop in the ground, getting crop established, that has been really, really good.
So what have you been planting? What are your key crops at the moment?
For us, with the basic cereals, we grow a lot of autumn cereal, so getting that in sooner rather than later seems to, what was particularly for feed varieties, tends to really return the yield. So that's been the key. But earlier on, we were planting quite a few hybrid brassicas and carrots, parsnips, that kind of thing, plus ryegrasses and white clovers.
So have you just been doing round about the same sort of hectareage as normal, or have you been mixing things up a bit?
Yeah, given the volatility in the dairy thing, we have been trying to move away from barley, especially moving to more of an oilseed rape kind of system. But you're more or less the same. Other than that, we're trying to not mix things up too much and get good at sort of what we do, as opposed to change it up all the time.
And are you reasonably pleased with the contracts for feed wheat and milling wheat coming out?
Yeah, listen, I don't think anyone's ever pleased with the contract. To be honest, it feels like the prices should be higher. It feels to me the way everything's sort of been the last wee while, we should be seeing a 4 at the front of the figures. In the milling wheat contracts, they've been, about probably on average where they normally are. But the feed wheat, it just feels a wee bit light. Especially given how dry things have been around the country. And I know there have been some wheat stores around the place cereal stores, that we're sitting here from last season and seasons before that are slowly being used up. So hopefully that, affects the pricing going forward and maybe, gives us a slight boost. But yeah, it's hard to say, especially, given how cheaply I know that Australia can get cereal landed in New Zealand. That does have a bit of a bearing on how high the price will ever get.
So what do you think are the key things that are going to worry the growers over the next sort of 6 months? What would be a real red flag for you guys?
Well, I guess the biggest issue is, and sort of an on-farm type of situation, the weather is always going to be the biggest issue. Is it going to stay dry? Is it going to turn really wet? Is it going to be freezing cold? Is it going to be warm? Nobody really knows. So, that's probably the biggest on-farm issue. But then, of course, there's other biological issues and environmental issues that we've got to think about as well. But yeah, hard to say.
But what do you think? I mean, are most growers fairly upbeat? I mean, I would have thought being an arable grower with the level of sort of resilience that you have in your farm systems, you probably are feeling reasonably confident that you'll be able to move forward over the next couple of years in a reasonably positive manner.
Yeah, look, I definitely want to agree with you there. We have come out of some pretty poor years in arable farming in the last wee while. Just given how in the last couple of years we had very low cereal prices 2 years ago, plus we had drought on top of that. Then we had a really wet growing season before that as well. So yeah, there has been a lot of factors, meaning we've had very tough times before. Now this sort of really feels like the first year we've actually had a decent year, and even then it doesn't feel like a really good year. So I guess people are forever positive and hoping that we're going to have a pretty good couple of years going forward. But the guys I've talked to, especially in our area, everyone is feeling quite positive because we're having a good season. As soon as that turns around and we start having not such a good season, then that can be turned around very quickly. Everyone becomes very pessimistic.
Yeah. Well, let's keep fingers crossed that we're going to stay quietly optimistic.
Yeah, well, that's all we've got to do with agriculture, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, that's the life of agriculture. Well, thank you very much, Roscoe. Thanks for giving us some of your time today. So our next grower from the Masterton region up in Wairarapa is Henry Reynolds. Hi, Henry. How are you?
G'day. Good, thanks.
Okay. So what's happening up your way? What's been happening over the last couple of weeks?
Last couple of weeks. Good question. We've got all our winter cereals in finally. We had some pretty good conditions really. After that dry spell earlier on, we had a decent bit of rain and sort of favoured that autumn sort of drilling conditions. So it's been quite good. So I think our last bit of malting barley went in about a week. 10 days ago, I think now. It's just posting seed through now, so no, it's good.
And so around the region, the planting has gone relatively smoothly?
Oh, I think so. Like they've had a pretty good opportunity to get maize grain off. So I think the majority of that's done now. And I think people don't always get an opportunity to get stuff back into that, but I think they have this season. So it hasn't been too bad. The autumn in generally speaking, has been quite slow. That's the only thing I would say is we just haven't had that real growth from our new pasture like we usually would. So that's probably been our biggest limiting factor at the moment, I'd imagine. Yeah.
So how have you been feeling about last season's harvest? Did it turn out reasonably good?
It was quite mixed. Like we dryland, so we always tend to get mixed results. This season just gone, our feed barley was quite good. Same with our malting barley in general, should I say? But then in saying that, our ryegrass was back. But then the season previous to that, we had a whole heap of rain in December, which favoured the ryegrass, and our feed barley actually ended up drowning out in some cases. So yes, quite mixed, but. On the whole, it was an average year. Cereals were above average, and any clovers and that sort of stuff sort of struggled a bit through that dry period coming into sort of February, March. So yeah, not too bad.
And so this year's planting pretty well, sort of similar sort of hectares with the same sort of crops, or any changes?
We've actually changed a few things. Like we're probably doing a little bit more winter cereal this year, or winter crop, should I say. We do a little bit of rapeseed as well. So yeah, winter crop is up a little bit for us personally.
Why is that? What's driven that?
So we sort of had a chat after COVID and the uncertainty of what was going on in the marketplace with the lambs and that sort of stuff. We had summer lambs on back in January, February, and it was just uncertain when we were going to be able to kill them, what was happening. So we sort of hashed a bit of a plan that we'd change our system a little bit. So we went from predominantly finishing lambs to looking at grazing hoggers. So that was one sort of venture that we went down as an alternative. And the other one, just to sort of diversify a little bit and sort of hedge our risk. We sold all the barley in the silos as the market was sort of favouring that. And we loaded up a little bit more on stuff that we could contract in the autumn. So we knew our out for the spring. So far it's actually unravelled itself quite well. So quite happy we made a plan, and so far so good. But the marketplace is always changing, I guess, but we just wanted to make sure we had some certainty around what we're doing.
Well, it's that building resilience into your farm system, isn't it? Making sure that you've not got all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, that's right. And I always get told off because we're not overly great at doing yearly budgets and that sort of thing. So our bank manager tells us off a little bit, but it's one of those situations where it's quite nice to be able to think on your feet in a situation like that and hatch a plan. And you can actually see yourself coming out the other side and you think, it worked. It was a good decision at the time, and we might be back a little bit financially, but the risk has been completely. We've diverted ourselves away from hedging our bets a little bit. So no, it's worked well.
Yeah. So any other sort of things worrying the locals up your way? Anything that's keeping them awake at night?
I don't think so. I guess there's a couple of things. I don't know if it keeps people awake. Well, I'm sure it keeps some people awake, but there's obviously coming into winter. I think everyone's pretty similar, but there's definitely a feed shortage around. For grazing animals and that sort of thing. Like I say, autumn's been pretty slow. We're lucky that we had a good dumping of rain earlier on, unlike other places. So we're not sitting too bad, but certainly I think that'd be probably one of the most worrying factors. And then following on from that, when we come into spring, will be talk of peas coming back into the Wairarapa and whether we're actually going to, hopefully we see, contracts come back to the Wairarapa, which I guess it wouldn't worry people, but it's another thing that people are starting to think about and conversations are being held with merchants and that sort of thing around what their plans are really. So hopefully we see some good come of that. So yeah,
oh, absolutely.
Lots of things
crossed.
Coming up anyway.
Yeah.
I hope so. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks very much, Henry. So, last grower for this episode is Paul Mackintosh from Whanganui. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Good, thank you, Alison.
So, what's happening around your end of the world? How did planting go?
Yeah, we don't do a lot of autumn planting up in this region. A little bit of winter wheat, perhaps, but it's more about getting grasses and winter crops sown post-harvest. So it's been a pretty kind autumn, which we needed because it's been quite low in rainfall, and certainly the hill country guys on both our coast and the east coast, especially Hawke's Bay, have had a really challenging few months.
So what are the main crops that are going to be going in this year? Is there still a reasonable amount of maize going in?
Yeah, maize will be planted in the October period, at the end of spring, or the beginning of spring rather. It's more getting winter grass and perennial grasses in autumn, and if there's feed crops and winter feed crops like kale and turnips and things like that, it's getting those in the ground and getting up and established well before the soil temperatures drop too far.
So what are the big concerns for the growers over the next winter period? Is there anything that they're concerned about that might impact on their sort of profitability?
Yeah, we've just come off a really challenging maize season, especially. The barley went really well for the most part, with average or above average yields, but the maize was certainly a really challenging crop for parts of our region. Generally, the ground that didn't have a high water table and was certainly exposed at a critical period, which is flowering. So there was quite a bad pinch of weather of moisture, and that certainly didn't help yields on some parts of the maize country.
So I know you guys up there have been sort of playing around with some sort of like new crops and having a look at them. Are any of those coming through that people are starting to think about planting out in scale?
Yeah, we'll get some more results hopefully about the sunflowers, just as another break crop, which could give us another break crop in our rotation. We don't have many crops up here to utilise, unlike the South Island and Canterbury especially. So yeah, at the moment, a lot of our farming systems in our arable sector are integrated with livestock. So there's always a tension there between which ground you've got for arable, which ground you've got for livestock, and part of our cropping program is feed crops basically for livestock. So in the hills, for example, which are very short of feed, cattle is one of our biggest concerns for the coming months. So the arable guys will have a part to play with in our region. We're helping out, shifting a bit of supplement through Hawke's Bay the last few days and coming weeks, and I guess modifying our stock policy to take into account how we can support those beef, especially beef cattle, and the dairy sector as well, with our spring planting. Perhaps a bit more grass cut for silage or oats perhaps turned to silage might have been a good option this spring.
So do you think that arable grains and silage are going to become more favourably looked upon by the livestock sector as a complementary feed?
Yeah, there's some good synergies between arable and dairy. Our region doesn't have a huge amount of dairy in it in the Whanganui, especially you go to South Taranaki and it's quite different up there. But so yeah, I'd say some crops like maize, silage that farmers might like to grow on their own farm. Perhaps some of the dairy guys might look at. They did buy in some corn that wasn't contracted and turned it into silage early, and that got them out of a bit of a jam for the autumn. But perhaps planning ahead, they might like to put a bit more crop in, and if the payouts are a bit lower, perhaps they might look at modifying the way their stocking rate is, perhaps in the reflection to where the coming year might be.
Excellent. Okay, thanks very much, Paul. Okay, so that's all for this roundup. Quick chat to 4 growers around the region, finding out what's been happening. So thank you for listening and have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.